A can of Coke has several spoonfuls of sugar, but the soft drink maker has agreed to cut sugar by 20% over the next 7 years to tackle obesity. It's part of an industry-wide agreement that was signed last week. Coca-Cola Amatil is facing into two consumer battlefronts, the war on sugar and the war on waste. The company is moving to phase out single-use plastic, but admits it has a way to go. I spoke to Coke boss Alison Watkins, but started by asking her about the energy report. Alison Watkins, it's no doubt that Coca-Cola Amatil is a huge energy user as a manufacturer in this country. Now, the ACCC is suggesting that the government should step into the market, underwrite future energy contracts to encourage generators to build more power into the system. Is this appropriate?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, the report's just come out and I'm very keen to take a look at the detail of it, but I think the overall thrust and the idea around creating buying groups, for example, is a really interesting theme. Certainly, energy prices are a huge issue for us as an Australian manufacturer, both in our beverages but also our SPC business. So these sorts of measures that can help make sure we are balancing the opportunities that we have in international markets with ongoing competitive prices that can sustain domestic manufacturing. These are incredibly important, so I'm very keen and supportive of the direction.
Can government intervention into markets ever be appropriate?
I think government intervention into markets is something that needs to be done with a great deal of caution, and I speak from coming from a fairly strong agricultural background and having seen, a long history of government intervention, which, I think Australia has done a great job by and large of pretty much removing, and we are very competitive on the world stage because of that, because it really has driven a lot of efficiency. However, clearly I think there's been a market failure. There's little question about that when it comes to energy, and I think that's been partly because of mismanaged policy. So I think government intervention is a very appropriate lever to consider just to help us through that until the market balance restores.
I want to shift to the issue of sugar, obviously a big one for you. You, along with Pepsi, have pledged to reduce the amount of sugary soft drinks that you sell by 20% by 2025. Now, Coke has already, since 2015, changed a lot of your ingredients to reduce sugar in your products. Now, this new benchmark that they're going to use goes from 2015. So is it a bit of a soft target to be aiming for?
I think it's a good threshold. You're absolutely right. We've been working very closely with our partner, the Coca-Cola company, actually over many years, but certainly since 2015 we committed to a 10% reduction by 2020, and we've already made a lot of progress. So if you look at some of our major brands, Deep Spring, for example, we've reduced the sugar by 25%, Powerades down by about 20%, Sprite down by about 15%. We've introduced Coke No Sugar as a major new innovation last year for us. We've been doing a lot, and we're very comfortable that we're on track for that 10%. Working with the industry and extending it to a 20% reduction by 2025, I think is something that it's not going to be, sort of an easy thing to do. However, I think it's a good target, and I think it really builds on very much what the consumer is wanting anyway, and we've certainly seen consumers are very much looking for more choice. They want to reduce their own sugar intake. They want to be able to have a treat when they want a treat. So if they want to have a Coke Classic, they still want to be able to have a Coke Classic, but maybe they'd like to have a 250ml option, which they can now have rather than a larger portion size. So for us, it is about making sure that choice is there, and also that we're making it easier for people to think about the choice, exercise the choice, whether that's through making sure our small pack sizes are available pretty widely, or the information's very clear on pack. We're very focused on the consumer, and I think these commitments really emphasise the leadership that we want to take as an industry to respond to the, I think, very understandable concern about obesity. But for us, it is about where the consumer's going anyway.
Is it also about shielding you from a sugar tax?
Look, there's a lot of debate about a sugar tax, and I think that's an important lever for us to be discussing, because clearly obesity is a very significant and growing challenge for our society. However, if we look at a sugar tax per se, it's pretty clear that that's not the answer. Sugar consumption has been in steady decline for decades, actually. Our sugar consumption was at its peak back in the 60s. It's been declining, and certainly if you look over the last 20 years or so, you see that adult added sugar consumption's declined by about 6%, kids down 23%. So there's been a very significant and sort of steady decline in sugar intake, and that's sugar overall, and it's sugar-based beverages as well. So I think the case for a sugar tax, in terms of actually addressing obesity, the facts just don't bear it out. I think governments who want to be seen to be looking like they're doing something, sometimes it can be tempting to resort to a sugar tax. Fortunately, our government and our opposition have both, I think, really do look to the facts and have made it very clear as recently as last week that they don't see that a sugar tax and a tax on sweetened beverages in particular is necessary. The kind of leadership that we're taking in as an industry absolutely reinforces that.
Another major issue for Coca-Cola is the issue of plastic and waste. Now, Coles uses a bottle for its water which is 100% recycled plastic and is 100% recyclable. It's made in Australia. Why doesn't Coke use that across all its brands, given how much plastic you use?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute priority for us, and we're proud to say that our 600 ml Mount Franklin bottle, which is one of our most popular bottles, is made out of 100% recycled PET resin and is 100% recyclable as well. So it's a direction that we have already been going strongly with, and many of our packages do contain recycled resin as well. So,
is there any reason that you haven't rolled it out across the whole company?
It's an area where we absolutely are and will go further. So working with our partner, the Coca-Cola company, we've committed by 2030 to the Coca-Cola company's World Without Waste targets. And essentially what that means for us in our markets is that for every bottle we create, we'll make sure that one is being recycled. We will also challenge ourselves on how we design our bottles, because certainly light-weighting bottles has been an important lever for us to reduce the amount of packaging that we're using.
Surely it would reduce costs as well.
It does that as well, absolutely, yeah. And so that's been something that consumers, sometimes consumers, in the area of, for example, value water, a very lightweight package is part of how you can achieve a competitive cost structure. In other areas, consumers actually really like what more premium packaging can stand for. So it's always working with the consumer, but I think there's a strong message from consumers around sustainability that we absolutely heed, and we're excited by the challenge, absolutely. And it goes much more, it's not just about recycling, but it's about the whole challenge of how we can close the loop completely so that we are generating no net waste, and that is our goal.
Is it more expensive or more hassle for companies to use recycled products?
Look, again, the markets are maturing, and we've heard about China shutting its boundaries to waste, which is also creating some near-term dynamics. And I think it's encouraging us as a company and as the broader Coca-Cola system to really challenge ourselves to say, how can we have greater influence over our destiny, if you like, in this regard. So the price of recycled resin can vary depending on what other uses and what other markets are there. The challenge for us as an industry, and I think working with government as well, is to make sure that there is good quality collection so that the waste streams that are coming in are clean, because that tends to improve the economics of recycling, as you can imagine, if you don't have a whole lot of contaminated waste coming in. And to make sure that we have really good capacity on the ground in each of our markets is something that we're focused on. That might be working with partners, or even, you know, considering ourselves how we might create more recycling capacity. These are all things that we're focused on, and we're also focused on, you know, how can we just reduce the number of one-way packages that are out there.
Alison Watkins, thanks for joining the program.
Thank you very much, Elysse.